All right, we're live and folks coming in. All right, welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us this afternoon. We're going to learn some great info from our presenters. Just a couple quick housekeeping things as we get started. First is that you may notice that we are recording this program and it will be streamed live to YouTube. So keep that in mind when you have your cameras enabled. If you don't want to be in that recording at all, you can go ahead and disable your camera and then we won't be able to see you. The other thing to note is that we will be taking questions, but we'll only be doing it through the chat box so that we can keep the focus on our presenters and the information they have to share. So if you have any questions throughout the program, go ahead and type them into the chat box and we will relay them at the appropriate time. Without anything else, I'll go ahead and say thanks again on behalf of the library for joining us and pass it over to Helen, who will tell us a little bit about the department.
Thank you very much, Jordan. I am really excited to be here with our guest speakers we have today. My name is Helen Dulac. I work for the City of Dallas in the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability, and we're very, very excited to be partnering with the library on this series called Earth Day Every Day, which is most Thursdays at noon. I'm going to tell you just a little bit about our department because you may have never heard about it before. So we were established back in 2004, but back then we were called the Office of Environmental Quality. And we worked really hard for 4 years. And in 2008, Dallas became the first city in the United States to achieve ISO 14001 certification. And that is an international environmental standard that companies, factories, and even municipalities can strive for. And we're actually audited every year. And what's amazing about this is we're talking about Dallas, Texas. We're not talking about a city in California. We're not talking about a city in Colorado. We're not talking about Austin. Dallas was the first city to achieve this. So we do want to be green and we just want to go greener. Let's fast forward 10 years where a lot of changes happened to this department. There was a restructuring in the city and some environmental operations and programs joined OEQ. And we doubled in size. And to reflect that change, we changed our name and we became Environmental Quality and Sustainability. With that merger, we created a combined outreach and engagement team that I'm a proud member of. And then the following year, Mayor Johnson created a special committee of the Dallas City Council that is focused just on the environment and sustainability. They meet the first Monday of every month, and those meetings are live streamed, and you can watch them. And it's a great way to keep a finger on the green pulse of the city. Now, if you have heard of this department, it's probably because just May 27th of 2020, the city adopted its comprehensive environmental and climate action plan known as CCAP. This is our roadmap for the next 30 years on how we're going to provide service and continue to mitigate climate change and not affect the climate any more than we have, and also just improve the quality of life for everybody. And as we move forward, you'll see a lot of things from the CCAP come and that are tied into it, including presentations like this. There's actually a goal in the CCAP about green spaces. Now, you can also see all 250 pages of the CCAP plan at dallasclimateaction.com. And what's really special about this too is that Dallas is not along the coast. So a lot of cities along the coast have climate plans, but Dallas is an inland city and we still understand climate change and want to mitigate it and are committed to that. So I mentioned we went through a merger a couple years ago, and those groups you see in green, Stormwater, Zero Waste, and Water Conservations, were some of the groups that joined us in 2018. I'm going to talk about one of those just briefly, and that is Stormwater. So we're about to get some of that today. We have some rain in our forecast that's going to come in tonight and through this weekend. And so any of the water that is not absorbed into the ground, anything that runs off your property, that is storm water. So storm water can be from rain, it could be from snow melt, it could also be from a hose. So that water will go across your lawn, down your driveway, into the street, goes all the way down the gutter to that big drain at the end of the street. That big drain is called a storm drain inlet, and it's there for one reason, and that's to make sure that the streets don't flood. So any liquid that's in there that comes into that drain goes directly into a creek, and then that goes into one of our lakes or eventually the Trinity River. And nowhere along that process is that water cleaned or treated. So if it picks up pollution along the way, that's how pollution ends up in our lakes and our rivers. So it could be from bacteria that's in pet waste that wasn't picked up. It could be litter. It could be automotive fluids that dripped out of a car. And it could also be any sort of maybe lawn chemicals you might have used. And all of that can be picked up by the water and ends up in our water bodies. So just please be mindful of what you're doing outside. And also just remember, pollution in your home, in your yard, even in your neighborhood, even in the city, doesn't necessarily stay here. It actually can end up all the way in the Gulf of Mexico, because the Trinity River does connect all the way to the Gulf of Mexico. So I mentioned I'm a member of the outreach and engagement team. Well, we want to empower Dallas to save the earth. And we do that by virtual presentations like this. We also can participate in seminars and events. We can talk, if you have a Dallas organization or HOA or NA, we can speak and engage with you for free. We also have a lot of activities for students, anywhere from K to college. If you invite us to speak, what do we talk about? Well, we can talk about environmental topics from A to Z, all the way from air quality to zero waste. And we also host a few of our own events. Some upcoming ones are the Climate Change Symposium. That's probably going to be in March. And also on April 1st, we are going to start the Wyland Foundation Mayor's Water Conservation Challenge. Dallas has won this title twice, last year and a couple of years before that. So Dallas had people pledge to conserve water and protect the environment, and we want to do it again. We beat out cities like Phoenix and Los Angeles and even New York, and I know we can do it again with your help. So with that, I want to encourage you to visit our website, greendallas.net. That's how you can invite us to participate in events or programs that you might be hosting by filling out the event request form. And if you ever have questions for me or anybody on my team, all you need to do is drop an email to greendallas@dallascityhall.com. And also, if you do that today and mention that you were on this presentation, this TLC for Trees presentation, you will get a thank you gift for spending your hour with us today. So remember, drop that email to greendallas@dallascityhall.com, include your name and your mailing address so that we can get your thank you gift to you. And of course, follow us on social media. We are Green Dallas TX on Facebook and @GreenDallas on Twitter and Instagram, so you can learn about cool programs like this and many others that we offer. So with that, I am super excited to introduce our first speaker today. And we have Jesse Ferris. And Jesse developed a passion for conservation and native plants at Texas Christian University. I went there too. Before graduating in 2017. I graduated much earlier than that. She worked as a horticulturalist at the Shangri-La Botanical Research and Nature Center before joining the City of Dallas as the Northwest District Arborist. When she's not in the field or meeting with clients, Jesse's focus is on public education and developing training materials for the city. She also serves as a secretary of the Trinity Blacklands Urban Forestry Council. So with that, welcome, Jesse, I'm sorry, and please share your screen.
Thank you, Helen. I'm so excited to be able to do this with y'all. Give me 1 second, let's get this going. Okay. Can you see it?
All right, yes, I see it and it looks fantastic.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, today we're going to talk about trees. We're going to talk about the urban forest in Dallas, some of the threats that can happen to the urban forest, such as climate change, the urban heat island effect. And then we're going to talk about the City of Dallas Landscape Ordinance, which talks about tree protection and required landscaping. And Preston Wilms, he is the Northeast District Arborist for the City of Dallas. He's going to provide us with a live pruning demonstration. So if y'all have any questions, please put them in the chat, and we're excited to do this with y'all.
The Dallas Urban Forest is comprised of the individual trees and groves in and around the places we live, work, and play. Urban forest assessment provides a baseline from which to measure changes, trends, and outcomes. Sound urban forest management includes tree maintenance, policy development, and budgetary decisions based upon understanding the current conditions. The urban environment itself is a threat to trees, which significantly shortens their lifespan. Compacted soils, artificial surfaces that do not absorb water, summer heat, and physical damage to limbs and root all take a health on the lifespan and may make trees more susceptible to insect damage and disease. This is why urban forests need planning, management, and care. In 2016, Texas Trees conducted an iTree eco study which revealed that Dallas's urban forest has approximately 14.7 million trees with an urban tree canopy coverage of 29%, which has been updated in 2020 and increased to 32%. However, like other urban areas, Dallas's trees are not evenly distributed throughout the city. Nearly half of all the trees are in the Great Trinity Forest, which is about 46% of the entire canopy. The remaining 54% of the canopy is heavily concentrated in areas zoned for residential and parkland. Some commercially zoned parcels in Dallas have an urban tree canopy of less than 5%. With such a large portion of the city's tree canopy focused in specifically zoned areas, it is important for Dallas to take steps to protect and enhance the urban forest by setting canopy goals. There is a strong correlation between land use and canopy cover. Additionally, a map of tree cover in almost any American city is also a map of income. But lower income neighborhoods usually don't have as many trees, and that inequitable distribution of trees in city exacerbates additional threats and social inequities. Fewer trees mean more heat-related illnesses. Approximately 1,200 heat-related deaths and countless heat-related illnesses are prevented because of trees each year. Communities with the highest tree cover needs tend to be those with the highest unemployment. Increased emissions erode air quality, and in 2018 alone, poor air quality was linked to nearly 10,000 additional deaths in the U.S. Climate change will continue to fuel the spread of pests and diseases that damage or kill trees, as well as extreme weather events that uproot trees, as we saw from past storms and the tornado in North Dallas. Dallas urban forest is composed of a mix of native species that include hackberries, American elm, green ash, eastern red cedars, and cedar elms, also exotic species such as Japanese and Chinese privet. This means that urban forests tend to have a higher tree diversity than surrounding native landscapes. The diversity of a forest is measured by the number of different species found in an area. High species diversity is a characteristic of healthy functional forests, and increased tree diversity can minimize the overall impact or destruction by species-specific insects or diseases, but can also pose a risk to native plants if some of the exotic species are invasive and can outcompete our native species. In urban settings, both native and non-native species can be part of a resilient urban forest if there are plans in place to plant the right tree in the right place at the right time. Additionally, tree age is directly related to the condition of the site, so it can be difficult to accurately measure a tree's age without intrusive measurements such as taking core samples. It's possible to utilize the DBH, or the diameter at breast height, and compare that with species growth curves to develop the approximation of the age of a particular forest. While larger trees provide substantially more ecosystem benefits, the space to grow and maintain large trees in an urban setting can be limited. Trees will only grow to the size that current environmental conditions will allow. With harsh summers, limited soil volume, poor soil quality, and intermittent watering, other options need to be considered. Forest regeneration is an important part of urban forest management. A mixed age class will ensure a sustainable canopy and will allow the city to better predict budgets and set management schedules. Trees are not only beautiful in themselves, but add beauty to their surroundings. But beyond aesthetics, trees provide ecosystem benefits that help improve the environment and quality of life. Clean the air by absorbing pollutants and releasing oxygen. They reduce stormwater runoff and erosion, temper the climate, help save energy, create wildlife habitats, and improve public health. They can even contribute to a community's well-being and economy. In our urban areas, summer temperatures and noise levels are higher than the surrounding countryside. Air pollution problems are more concentrated, which reduce our personal health benefits that are available to us by having access to wooded areas and green open spaces. Trees can help solve these problems. About 80% of us live in cities and towns, and we can act individually to improve our natural environment through the planting and care of trees on our own streets and by supporting community-wide forestry programs. Through technology, we are learning more about trees and how they benefit mankind, and how we can do a better job of planting and caring for these trees that make up our urban forest. Trees are a major capital asset in America's cities and towns. Just as streets, sidewalks, sewers, public buildings, and recreational facilities are part of the community's infrastructure, so are publicly owned trees. Trees and the urban forest are important assets that require care. Dallas's urban forest provides community, economic, and ecosystem service benefits to its citizens. The iTree Eco Study calculated the extent of these values into 4 major benefits: pollution removal, carbon storage and sequestration, energy savings, and stormwater management. Dallas's trees are estimated to reduce energy-related costs from residential buildings by over $8.9 million annually. Trees also produce over $1 million in value by reducing the amount of carbon produced by fossil fuel-based power plants, a reduction of over 17,000 tons of carbon emissions. Studies have shown that trees enhance community economic stability by attracting businesses and tourists. People tend to linger and shop longer along tree-lined streets. A community's urban forest is an extension of its pride and community spirit. There are several environmental benefits that trees provide us. Trees and other plants make their own food from carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, water, sunlight, and a small amount of soil elements. In this process, they release oxygen for us to breathe. So remove gaseous pollutants by absorbing them through the pores of their leaf surface. Particulates are trapped and filtered by leaves, stems, and twigs, and washed to the ground by rainfall. Air pollutants seriously injure trees by damaging their foliage and impairing the process of photosynthesis. They also weaken trees, making them more susceptible to other health problems such as insects and diseases. The loss of trees in our urban areas not only intensifies the urban heat island effect from loss of shade and evaporation, but we lose a principal absorber of carbon dioxide and trapper of other air pollutants as well. Poor air quality is a common problem in many urban areas. It can lead to decreased human health, damage to landscapes and ecosystem processes, and reduced visibility. The urban forest can help improve air quality by reducing air temperatures, directly removing pollutants from the air, and reducing energy consumption in buildings through shading. The physical process by which trees help clean our air is through the interception of particulate matter on leaf surfaces and absorption of pollutants. Pollution removal by trees in Dallas is estimated at 2,980 tons of air pollution annually, with an associated value of $15.2 million each year. Air pollutants removed include ozone, carbon monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, and particulate matter. Trees emit volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, that contribute to the ground level ozone, making the overall effect trees play on air quality complex to calculate. Studies have shown that increasing tree canopy cover in an area can actually reduce ozone levels. Vegetation can absorb as much as 20% of the global atmospheric ozone production, so the potential impact on air quality is substantial. Trees also conserve water and reduce soil erosion. Trees create organic matter on the soil surface of their leaf litter. Their roots increase soil permeability. This results in reduced surface runoff of water from storms, reduced soil erosion and sedimentation of streams, increased groundwater recharge that is significantly reduced by paving, lesser amount of chemicals transported into streams, reduced wind erosion of soil, and without trees, cities would need to increase sewage and stormwater drainage channels and waste treatment capacities to handle increased water runoff. Reduce the amount of carbon in the atmosphere by sequestering carbon in new growth every year. The amount of carbon a tree can sequester and store is increased with the size and health of the tree. Young, healthy trees sequester carbon at a much higher rate than older, more mature trees, but large trees store significantly more carbon. For example, a live oak represents 2% of the total tree population, but accounts for 8% of the total carbon stored. The iTree study calculated that Dallas's trees sequester over 115,000 tons of carbon per year for an associated value of $8.19 million annually, and store an additional 1.9 million tons valued at $137 million. Water runoff is the rainfall that flows over the ground surface. It is created when rain falls on roads, driveways, parking lots, rooftops, and other paved surfaces that do not allow water to soak into the ground. Stormwater runoff is the #1 cause of stream impairment in urban areas. If it falls on paved surfaces, a much greater amount of runoff is generated compared to runoff from the same storm falling over a forested area. These large volumes of water are swiftly carried to our local streams, lakes, wetlands, and rivers, and can cause flooding and erosion and wash away important wildlife habitat. Trees improve stream quality and watershed health primarily by decreasing the amount of stormwater runoff and pollutants that reach local waters. Trees reduce runoff by capturing and storing rainfall in the canopy and releasing water into the atmosphere through evapotranspiration. In addition, tree roots and leaf litter create soil conditions that promote infiltration of rainwater into the soil to replenish groundwater supplies and maintain stream flow during dry periods. The study additionally found that Dallas's trees reduce runoff by an estimated 59,192,000 cubic feet a year, with an associated volume of $3.94 million. Savings are another environmental benefit. Strategically placing trees can be effective as other energy-saving home improvements, such as insulation and the installation of weather-tight windows and doors. Trees can help reduce your heating and cooling costs. Trees save energy through cooling in the hotter months. They provide a windbreak during winter, and this results in burning less fossil fuels to generate electricity for cooking and heating. Place shade trees, a minimum of 3 large trees around your home, can reduce air conditioning costs up to 30%. This is achieved through transpiration and by blocking the summer sun, which is especially important in Dallas. Tree size, proximity to a building, and whether they are evergreen or deciduous can have a tremendous effect on residential cooling and heating costs. Energy's estimates from the study involved measuring tree distance and directions from building, species, tree height, and percent canopy. Trees can help cool the heat island effect in our inner cities. These islands result from storage of thermal energy in concrete, steel, and asphalt. Islands are 3 to 10 degrees warmer than surrounding areas. The collective effect of a large area of transpiring trees or evaporating water reduces the overall air temperature in these areas. Finally, trees also create wildlife habitats and plant diversity. Trees and associated plants create local ecosystems that provide habitats and food for birds and animals. They offer suitable mini-climates for other plants that would otherwise be absent from urban areas. Biodiversity is an important part of urban forestry. Urban forests provide many benefits, not the least of which are those related to human health and functioning of society. Examples of social benefits that urban trees provide include improved human mental and physical health, improved academic performance when school settings and classrooms integrate trees and forest views, better social cohesion, and crime reduction. Studies have identified a direct correlation between the amount of trees and grass in community common spaces and the use of those common spaces by residents, which leads to more opportunities for informal social interactions and greater relationships between neighbors. Additionally, urban forests play an incredibly important, multifaceted role in maintaining and improving not only the economic and environmental conditions of cities, but also the health of their inhabitants. Studies have found a correlation between community forests and the average amount of physical activity exerted by the neighborhood residents. People are more inclined to get outdoors and exercise when their surroundings are greener. Logically, greater physical activity leads to fewer cases of obesity, which in turn may help reduce other health problems such as heart disease and diabetes. Additional research is needed to understand the mechanisms by which these benefits occur and any associated trade-offs. These social benefits are necessary for sustaining urban areas, especially at a time when increasing rates of global populations live within cities. In order to enable access to urban forests and the benefits they provide to everyone, regardless of socioeconomic status, age, race, or ethnicity, equitable urban forest management policies and tree planting incentives are needed to bridge that gap. The city of Dallas is a thriving urban area which increases the susceptibility of threats to trees and ecosystems. With a canopy cover of about 32%, Dallas's urban forest seems adequate compared to other urban cities. However, there is a large discrepancy within various regions of the city where canopy cover ranges from 5% to 60%. The greatest threat to the existing canopy continues to be the land development process. Under current practices, the decrease in forest density and large native trees can increase the presence of tree pests and non-native trees. Plus, Dallas is getting hotter. The city of Dallas is one of the largest cities in the country, and Dallas is heating up faster than most. This is because Dallas is 35% impervious surface, and not even the 23,000 of parkland acres nor the Great Trinity Forest provide enough shade to lower ambient air temperatures and mitigate the urban heat island effect. Research has also shown a direct correlation between heat and ozone formation. With more than 80% of Americans living in urban areas, better land use strategies that incorporate more trees and parks, reflective roofs, and other alternative methods of green infrastructure can reduce the effects of a growing urban heat island and improve overall air quality. Tree preservation is only a piece of this puzzle. To ensure Dallas's urban forests will benefit future generations, long-range policies and programs for maintaining and expanding tree cover must be developed. 67% of the total tree population is comprised of hackberry, American elm, green ash, eastern red cedar, and cedar elm, making the possibility of losing a large portion of the city's tree canopy in a single catastrophic event highly likely. For example, emerald ash borer or Dutch elm disease. In addition, over 20% of the top 5 species are greater than 20 inches in diameter, which lead to an annual net loss of trees through natural mortality over time. Large-scale tree planting initiatives, improved landscape requirements, and maintenance standards will increase the overall tree canopy. Long-term, strategic tree planting programs must include expanded species selection, updated landscape requirements, maintenance requirements, and cost. The City of Dallas has passed the Climate Action Plan, which prioritizes tree plantings in neighborhoods with the highest needs. Additionally, the city is close to finalizing the Urban Forest Master Plan, which also encourages tree planting and an increase in canopy coverage. Emerald ash borer is an invasive wood-boring beetle that targets ash trees and is posing a substantial threat to Dallas's urban forests on both public and private land. The beetle spreads naturally from tree to tree, but large jumps in distribution are thought to only occur with the help of man. Safety professionals caution the public to never move hardwood firewood out of an EAB-infested county to avoid helping the beetle spread. Firewood cut from infested trees is likely to harbor live beetles that later emerge and infest nearby ash trees. An assessment of the condition of the ash trees in the Trinity Forest and City of Dallas public property will be necessary for a successful EAB mitigation strategy. Currently, the Urban Forest Master Plan calls for an update to the Great Trinity Forest and Wildlife Management Plan, which will help mitigate this threat through thoughtful, research-based approaches that have proven more financially and environmentally effective than outright tree removal. Cities that delay action or rely on removals-only approach may be overwhelmed with public risk trees. This strategy will not only save money, but it will reduce liabilities. The City of Dallas Article 10 Landscaping Ordinance exists to preserve the visual environment of a community. The ordinance recognizes both the aesthetic and environmental value of trees, sets requirements for planting, conditions for removal, and regulates the type of trees that developers and individuals can plant on a property. Well-designed and maintained landscaping can screen visually undesirable features from public view, protect the privacy of residents, and promote the community as one that cares about its appearance. It can also improve the physical environment of the community through using plants best suited to its climate, improving drainage, and enhancing air quality. The ordinance is enforced by the chief arborist and 4 district arborists. The arborists review landscape plans and conduct landscape inspections for compliance with Article 10. Compliance with Article 10 is required for commercial building projects. Several of these mandatory requirements include street trees, site trees, soil and planting requirements, design options, and automatic irrigation. Design options can include tree conservation, water-wise plant materials, screening and parking, and more. Additionally, a protected tree, which is one that is not invasive and at least 8 inches caliber, requires tree mitigation for removal. Mitigation for protected tree removal is calculated on an inch-per-inch basis and must be planted on the lot where the removal took place. If the building official has determined that conditions make planting on that site impractical, other options include planting within 1 mile, granting a conservation easement, donating trees to the city, or a payment into the reforestation fund. Other duties for the arborists include tree survey verification, plat removal, and consultations with city staff, citizens, contractors, and developers. The City of Dallas encourages the growth of the urban forest by supplying trees and guidance to the citizens of Dallas. Created by the Ordinance for the Mitigation of Trees Removed for City Growth, the Dallas Urban Forest Reforestation Fund provides a resource to purchase new trees that can be planted on public property. In order for projects to qualify for assistance for this program, the project must be sponsored wholly or in part by a planting group, such as a community group or City of Dallas department. All trees requested through this program must be planted on public property, which includes City of Dallas parks, recreation centers, approved medians, and parkways. One of the key factors that influence the health of a tree is ensuring that the proper species is planted in a proper location. Trees offer so much to home landscapes and benefit homeowners and the communities that they live in, whether that's for shade, beauty, privacy, windbreak, or higher property values. But these benefits are only enjoyed when you plant the right tree in the right place. Planting large trees in tight spaces or trees that aren't compatible for the region are detrimental to the health of the tree and can result in higher maintenance costs. Planting species that are native to your area is a safe way to ensure trees will thrive. It's also helpful to consider other factors before planting to help you determine where to plant your trees. Decide what function you want the tree to serve. The type of tree you select will vary depending on the purpose for planting. Once you know why you're planting, select from species that serve that purpose well. For example, a large deciduous tree is ideal for shade, such as an evergreen, which work well as a privacy fence or a windbreak. Or if you're looking to add beauty to your yard, flowering trees are a great option. Incorporation of Texas native landscapes help conserve water, protect water quality, and create wildlife habitats. The City of Dallas Article 10 Landscaping Code has specific planting requirements for trees on city property. They must be established and maintained in accordance with ANSI A300 standards for tree care operation and ISA best management practices. It also provides an approved tree list on the Landscaping Tree Manual webpage. Once the soil and site conditions for tree planting are determined and evaluated, homeowners can factor in their personal preferences when choosing a species of tree. Characteristics such as tree shape, size, flowering, colors, and texture should all be considered. Trees must be selected carefully in order to accomplish their intended purpose satisfactorily and continue to do so with future growth and development. One objective for planting trees in a residential setting is to provide shade to cool homes during the summer months. For morning shade, plant trees on the southeast exposure of the house. For afternoon shade, trees should be planted on the southwest exposure. Deciduous trees, or those that lose their leaves during the winter, allow the sun to warm the house during winter and shade it during the summer months. Evergreen trees planted on a northern exposure will screen or block cold winter winds. Also remember that trees will become larger with age. Your evaluation of the site before planting will allow you to choose the correct size of tree for the site, avoid crowding before it occurs, and save time and money in the future. Different species of tree have different crown forms, such as round, oval, leaping, pyramid, column, or spreading. Selection of a proper form will satisfy your landscape objectives, enhance your property, and decrease future maintenance costs. Trees with low spreading branches are suitable for screens, but are not for placement along driveways where visibility is essential. Choosing the wrong tree and planting it in the wrong place can cause damages to infrastructure, roadways, utilities, building, and can shorten the lifespan of the trees. Additionally, it will require excessive maintenance such as trimming, shaping, irrigation, and fertilization. Proper pruning encourages growth, increases flowering and fruit production, improves plant health, and removes damaged limbs, all of which give an aesthetic appeal to a tree. Pruning at the right time and in the right way is critical, since it's possible to kill a tree by neglect or over-pruning. Pruning at the wrong time can be damaging to tree tissues. Winter is an excellent time to prune dead and hazardous branches because it's easier to spot potential hazards such as cracks, defects, and deadwood in leafless trees and apply corrective pruning when necessary. For landscape shade trees, pruning is only necessary to remove dead limbs. Should you choose to prune for other reasons, remember that the tree is not a requirement. Trees need leaves, so be cautious when pruning. In particular, do not top a tree unless you want to permanently stunt its growth. The most common victim is a crepe myrtle, and it's often referred to as crepe murder. More advanced pruning methods can help improve the tree structure and overall health. All pruning leaves cut wounds on the tree. The best time to prune for tree health would be in early spring when wound closure is fastest due to new growth. Trees should be pruned away from power lines and visibility triangles. We encourage using an ISA certified arborist because a professional arborist can assist your landscape and work with you to determine the best and safest course of action for any work that needs to be done. Proper mulching should be no more than 2 to 4 inches deep. Limiting the mulch depth allows efficient soil-oxygen exchange for healthy tree roots. Mulch should be spread out around the tree, as far as the tree branches extend, and tapered to the ground level at the outer edge. Mulch selection is critical for a healthy landscape. Plastic mulch inhibits water from reaching the soil and should be avoided. Wood chips, bark chips, or other natural materials are best for mulching. Pine needles or oak leaves are not recommended as they can change the pH of the soil to a more acidic level. Mulch can be essential for a newly planted tree because it insulates the soil, which helps to provide a buffer from the heat and the cold. It also retains water to help the roots stay moist. Additionally, the mulch can help keep out weeds to avoid root competition and prevent soil compaction. During the first growing season, don't fertilize with high nitrogen fertilizer. Use root stimulators or slow-release organic fertilizer at half recommended the rate. During the second growing season, fertilize 3 to 4 times using a slow-release fertilizer. For a newly planted tree, water the hole until it is soaked. This will help saturate the roots. Water as needed for at least 18 months by placing a soaker hose around the base of the tree and slowly saturate the area. Usually you need water when the soil has dried to a depth of 4 to 6 inches. An easy way to test soil wetness is by probing the soil with your fingers. If it feels wet or bunny, do not water. If it comes out dry or damp on the end, it's time to water. During a hot, dry summer, check the soil every 4 to 5 days. It is equally important that you do not overwater a native or adapted tree. Tree gator bags can also be used to provide a slow delivery of water over the root balls for establishing trees and shrubs. Tree protection complying with Article 10 standards are required for all development projects. This is designed to preserve and protect tree health by avoiding damage to tree roots, trunk, or the crown. Site development planning prior to site disturbance should include identifying tree protection zones for all trees designated for retention. Each tree has a critical root zone, or CRZ, that varies by species and site conditions. The CRZ can be determined by finding the outer drip line of the tree canopy. Cutting or disturbing a large percentage of the tree's roots increases the likelihood of the tree's failure or death. In order to help trees remain as healthy and stable as possible during the construction process and beyond, establish a critical root zone for all trees that will remain on site. Install strong fencing around the critical root zone and require the fence to remain in place for the life of the development project. Additionally, you should post signage to help convey the importance of the critical root zone and tree protection fencing to workers. Never under any circumstances park a vehicle or store equipment or materials underneath a tree inside of the tree protection fencing. Additionally, you want to avoid cutting tree roots over 4 inches in diameter, and make all necessary cuts to tree roots evenly and never tear with a backhoe. A clean cut encourages closure and confines the spread of decay. Do not change the soil grade within the critical root zone. Doing so will suffocate the roots and cause them to die.
Hey guys, when Preston is ready, he's going to do a live demo for y'all for pruning, planting, and we'll be ready for questions after that. Thank you.
Here, let me. All right, here. We're going. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Are we good? Okay. I'm Preston Williams, the City of Dallas Northeast District Arborist. I'm just going to talk a little bit about tree care with y'all. Thanks, Jesse, for your presentation. It's a lot of information. Hopefully, we'll have some good questions to get to after my little demonstration. All right, so first I'll talk about this little peach tree I planted here last year, and for location purposes, I wanted it to be in the full sun and in a spot that won't conflict with utilities, because if you see here, we have my home came with a mature thorn tree that's had to be utility pruned for several years, and so I wanted to plant a smaller tree out front so that wouldn't be an issue. But this will still get a large enough size that it'll give some good shade benefits to the home. And right now it's still growing, and I've already trained it for a good shape. But for instance, if I wanted to prune back this branch, I would prune it back to this fork in the limb for a reduction cut, and then these would grow out and it would stay in a more confined habit. And another thing on fruit trees especially is that sometimes you'll get suckers coming up beneath the graft line. So from here up, this is where it's grafted. This is the good peach tree, but down here is just the hardy rootstock, and so this won't ever bear good fruit. So we'll snap it off. And yes, good on that. And hopefully in April for Earth Day, we'll come back and have a follow-up talk about fruit trees. And here we have a bald cypress, which is one of my favorite trees. I lived in San Marcos for a while, and they grow along the river there. Beautiful. And this is a good example of not the right tree for the right place, because they grow about 80 feet tall, and I already have mature shade trees out here, and they would eventually probably have to get utility pruned. And they also have a very invasive root system that could conflict with the pavement and the foundation, and even the lawn. The roots can form knees that raise up and would make it difficult to mow. But this one's a good example for showing some structural issues you need to look for when you're selecting a tree from a nursery or garden center. Especially on this type of tree, you want a strong central leader and then just lateral branches coming off as perpendicular as possible. But right here, you see we have co-dominant stems, which just means there's more than one stem trying to be the main trunk going up the middle. And so what you want to do is prune those off as close to the collar as possible. And that way, that'll allow this one to maintain being the central leader. And also there's some other smaller branches that are starting to go up, so you can take them back to the fork. And if there isn't a good branch fork on there, you can find a node where there will be another stem coming out. And another thing to look for structural issues is crossing branches that when the wind blows, it can rub and it can form a wound for disease and insects to get in and damage the tree. And so those are good to be pruned off. And then also, if you have this one, there's kind of an asymmetrical growth pattern. So I want to thin these out to even it up a little bit. Just take off every other. It's crossing. All right, this is looking a little better. And I'll probably do before I plant it. And so because this is a nice tall tree with real big root structure, I have a creek in the backyard that I'll plant it, and the roots will help with erosion control. So I already have a few out there. All right, next, I'm going to talk about old Japanese maple. And this one's a good example for looking for frost damage, because these can be a little tender in the real cold temperatures like we had last week. And I've seen a lot of the garden experts on the morning shows and online offering their advice for assessing the winter storm damage on our landscape materials. And the main takeaway is the only thing you really need to be worried about right now is just broken branches that are posing an immediate threat. Other than that, the best course of action is just to wait till spring and see what's actually dead, because leaving that dead material on there will actually help insulate the plants and trees from any further cold weather we have. And the trees will naturally just compartmentalize the dead material, and it won't waste any energy when they start putting on new growth. It'll just be more obvious what twigs and stems and branches are dead. And a good way to test for that, if you're concerned about it, is you can scratch the outer layer of bark with your thumb or something sharp and see if it's still showing green. Then this is going to grow, and see it already has some buds on it, so this one will be nice and healthy. But down here you can see we have some. This is obviously dead; it snaps right off, but it doesn't hurt to go ahead and get a good clean cut on it. All right, and then another tree I wanted to show y'all is we have this mulberry that probably just came up naturally as a little bulb here, or deposited it, and the previous homeowner, but it also have an invasive root system that you might be worried about foundation eventually, and also it's rather close to the roof. I don't want it potentially rubbing or doing any damage to the roof. So I'm going to keep it reduced in a more manageable size until I eventually have to remove it. And it'll make good wood for barbecue. But I'll demonstrate some pruning on it. And when you're using long-handled pole pruning tools, that means if you happen to reach that high, that means there's a threat of something falling. So it's good to have proper head and eye protection. All right. So on a larger scale version of the codominant situation, we have this branch coming out, but then it's starting to go up and compete with that main central leader. So I want to go ahead and reduce that one back quite a bit. And I'm eventually going to take it all the way back to here. So this will be just a lateral branch rather than a second trunk. But I'll demonstrate some reduction cuts along the way. So when you're doing a reduction cut, which is just to take the length and weight off a branch and make it a smaller ratio to the larger main trunk, you follow back from the tip and find a branch, a fork in the branch, and you'll take off the larger branch because then it just leaves the more diminutive one, and it can have more balance. That wasn't very good cut. But I'm going to take this all the way back, so it's just for demonstration purposes. See, here's the So that would reduce that one a little bit, but I'm going to go more. And then as it gets too large for the pole pruner, I use the pole saw. And that's should be a good one to demonstrate. So the proper cutting technique with the larger branch is it's called the 3-cut system. You do an undercut about 1/3 to halfway up the diameter of the branch, and then an inch or more inside of that, you do a top cut, and then the third and final cut is just take off that nub that's left, take it back to the branch collar where it'll make a smaller wound and heal up quickly. But I wanted to demonstrate what happens if you don't do that undercut, and why it's recommended. See, without the undercut, the branch will fall and tear down around the side. Without the undercut, the branch will tear all the way down and create a huge wound that can be a place for disease and insects to attack the tree. All right, dang. Step back. get in there and make a final cut to clean it up. And then this tree has some older cuts on it. You can see a good example how when you make a cut outside the branch collar, it will start healing up to close it up and compartmentalize that dead wood. All right. Let's see. Oh. Let's see. Flip. All right. Well, that's all I have for my little pruning demonstration. I guess we can get to the questions.
Thank you, Preston. Could you please review your tools that you use and then share a little bit about how we can care for those tools?
Oh, okay. Yeah. So the first tool. Yeah. Well, here, I'm going to pass the camera back to my wife. So the most, I think the gardener's most trusty tool is just their hand pruners and the classic Felco 2. They've been the industry standard for years and years. These are my grandmother's, but they just a little bit of WD-40 and a cloth to clean them off. And then when you're cutting on trees that are subject to diseases or roses, you can Lysol them in between cuts to make sure you're not transmitting any diseases. Sometimes you see that from commercial landscaping jobs, especially with the photinias, where they're hedging them back and they don't clean them, and there'll be a huge swath of fungal disease that gets spread across them. And then also just a pole pruner is really handy for the small trimming on landscape trees. And this one was a combination saw and pole pruner, but I like to have just a dedicated pruner and a dedicated saw. And then the pole saw, and this was just a pretty affordable one I got off of Amazon. And it came with 3 poles, so I can actually get up and work pretty high from the ground. And it's just good after you use them to get a good coarse brush to brush off, clean out all the sawdust between the blades so they don't rust and get dull. And then, and these blades, just for homeowner purposes, can last a pretty long time. And then, yeah, and then just the headgear and it's got ear protection for when using a chainsaw. And then this is nice because it's safe, but it breathes and don't have to worry about getting safety glasses sweaty. Yeah.
I have to admit, I have helmet envy after seeing your helmet. Could you please show us the final cut that you made on your mulberry tree?
Yeah, it's not very pretty because it was at a bad angle, but let's see. So it's a pretty big wound, and ultimately this branch is probably going to get completely removed anyway. I was just kind of reducing it over time, but that it should heal up all right. But I don't know, I was kind of a little nervous and working a little fast.
That's all right, because I think we're all intimidated by trimming our trees. So it's nice to even know that, professionals, we're all human, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, and when you are reducing a branch, it's good. Just take it slow. You can never put it back on. So just take it one little chunk at a time, and then step in. It's always good to step back and take a look at it, and decide how you feel about it.
All right, Preston. Well, thank you very much. I know I learned a tremendous amount from this demonstration. I really, really appreciate you doing it, and I'm glad the weather worked out versus how it was a week ago today.
Yeah.
All right, Jesse, I think we have some questions for you. Donna is asking about what, she had a tree in her front yard, but it died. What is the best size to purchase? And she would like a tree that's not too small, and maybe something besides an oak tree. Do you have some recommendations for her?
Sure. Yeah. I guess it depends if you want to do a medium tree. That could be like a Texas red oak, maybe not an oak, or Chinese pistache. Those do really well in Texas. The city of Dallas has an approved tree list that we provide to developers, and it consists of small trees, medium trees, and large trees. So it just definitely depends on what size you want it to be, how big the landscape area is. And we suggest going native trees.
That is a good point, and especially maybe not an ash tree if we're going to have that emerald ash borer, right?
Right, maybe not.
Right. Can you share a little bit about, so, you know, the state tree of Texas is the pecan tree. Can you give a little bit of advice for maybe feeding and care for pecan trees?
I'm going to hand that to Preston because he has one right in his front yard.
Yeah, pecan trees, they don't need a whole lot of fertilization, especially once they're established. Because they are native, they're good at extracting nutrients from our soil. But I'm kind of minimalist when it comes to landscaping. If anything, I make my own compost in the back, and I'll top dress in the spring with that. The biggest thing about pecans is they can be a little high maintenance when it comes to pruning, because they naturally just kind of self prune and shed a lot of stems and branches, and they're a little messy. It's not an ideal tree to have hanging over your house, especially because the squirrels love them and they make a little bit of a mess, but I'm glad I have them. But yeah, I recommend them if you have enough room for them, because they can get pretty majestic.
That is true. There is nothing like, I mean, that's why it's the state tree of Texas. You know, if it wasn't big and majestic, it wouldn't be the state tree of Texas. And speaking of native trees, do you guys have recommendations on a good place to purchase native trees?
Yeah, there's a lot of good garden centers around the DFW area. Especially since they got hit by the tornado, I like to give as much business as I can to North Haven Gardens to help support them. And they have great selection and very knowledgeable staff. So. But also in the spring and fall, the Texas Discovery Gardens has a really affordable plant and tree sale that you can register for online. And they had it even during the pandemic. They just had a more limited admittance.
That is true. They did, and they also included an indoor plant sale this year too. And that is a great place to go and visit. And they have a beautiful organic, like a 7-acre organic garden where you can actually see a lot of these trees and what they look like mature, because it looks a lot different than when you get a little, 1-inch, tree and plant it in your yard. All right, so we actually had a question about, is there a process to assess the damage to trees in Dallas during last week's winter storm?
Jesse?
Is that for trees and on your property? I guess it would depend if the tree is going to be on city property. Public Works would come out, and they typically take care of trees in the medians. If they see a dead tree, they'll pick it up and it gets taken to the landfill. But really, we haven't heard anything about any major damage. But like Preston said, you can typically see it if you scratch onto the bark. You see the green on the limbs. Preston?
Yeah, that's with assessing a citywide storm damage. that was something that we found was deficient back in the last few years with all the storms we've had. And we're hoping that the urban forest master plan can help create a more kind of unified city tree team that we
Yeah,
could address
a
something
storm
like that.
response team is what it's called, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
So we're working on it.
And speaking of the urban forest master plan, we are receiving, it is open for public comment until February 28th, which is coming up really soon. So there was a link provided in the chat, and that will be sent out in an email so that you can review the plan and submit your comments. And there are 2 different ways to submit comments. So we encourage you to do that so that you can share good ideas like the storm assessment and learn about what the city is doing and the value they put on trees. And I just want to remind everybody that if you would like the thank you gift, please send an email to greendallas@dallascityhall.com. Mention that you were on this program, the tree program, and we will mail you one. And also, Preston, I think, did allude to, we are going to have Jesse and Preston back on the Monday before Earth Day, and they're going to talk strictly on fruit trees. And so I think we're going to be really excited about that. They're going to be on the program called Grow With Us, the Monday of Earth Day. So it'll be the week of April 22nd. That Monday, they will be back to talk to us about fruit trees. And with that, we have reached the top of the hour. So we want to thank everybody so much for being on this program on behalf of Dallas Environmental Quality and Sustainability, Dallas Public Library, and our 2 city arborists. We wish you well. And remember, this video will be on the Dallas Public Library's YouTube page so that you can refer to it again, you can share it, and you can check out all the other videos we've done. And lastly, I just want to let our speakers know that you have a lot of thank yous, great jobs, and virtual high fives in the chat for your fantastic presentation. And thank you both so much for your time today.
Oh, it was our
you.
pleasure.
Yep.